Good morning. It is Thursday, y'all, the 16th of January, 2024. January is halfway over today. Can you believe it? It just doesn't seem possible. We're already halfway through January. It feels like just last week was Christmas and New Year's, and here we are. Time will not slow down. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're able to attend a Bible believing, preaching, teaching church. To be transparent, I did not. Last night or yesterday, I ended up going to my doctor and my eye doctor. I have a scratch in my outer lining of my eyeball and a little bit of a scratch and a little bit of opening possibly in my cornea. So went there, got some eye drops and some antibiotics, and I got to do that for 7 days. I keep dropping those eyes. So yeah, pray for me because for those of you who know me, I had a retina detachment in my right eye back in 2021, and it sees, but it doesn't see the best. And my right eye is my best eye. My left eye, I have what's called a lazy pupil, where my pupil moves around. So if something happens to my right eye, I can't read with my left eye very well unless it's like giant, giant, giant print, like beyond super giant print. That's the only way I can really read with my left eye. And it has a cataract on it, which they won't do surgery on because of I'm at a high risk of retina detachment. So my left eye, the cataract's actually gotten worse over the last year. Um, so it's not bad enough to where they'll do surgery. But now it's kind of a weird thing. He didn't recommend me go see an ophthalmologist for surgery or anything because it didn't look like it was that bad. But now sometimes when I breathe out, it looks like a little cloud goes over top of my eye. And so it's kind of creepy, to be quite honest. So I did watch services online, which is good. Brother Paul Quint did preach for us last night, and he preached for us what the Bible means to him. That's a theme for the preachers on Wednesday nights. Pastor's been having some of us get up there and preach on what the Bible means to us. So, but again, I can't emphasize enough the church is important. It's daily. Your daily walk with Christ is very important, but having a good Bible believing preaching church where you can fellowship with like minded believers is a hinge for your Christian walk to help you grow. So, yesterday we wrapped up talking about Moses and how Moses apparently was physically resurrected from the dead. And because we saw that he appeared in Matthew and he appeared in the Gospels and all four Gospel accounts, I believe. I think Matthew, Mark, and Luke give an account of Moses and Elijah. I think John does too, maybe at the Transfiguration. I can't remember. Anyway, where they appeared with Christ up on the mount and they could see them bodily to the point that they wanted to make tabernacles for them. So Moses, in making tabernacles, means you could have walked up and touched Moses. And Moses was very much alive. Now, we don't know if he was in some kind of glorified state. The only glorified state that we saw was Christ, where he was changed into his glorified state, what he looks like in heaven. And so we know that Moses was resurrected from the dead and he is alive. We also know that Elijah physically did not die. He was bodily alive, resurrected. Now that's a picture of there Moses and Elijah, the dead in Christ, and the alive, those that are alive and remain, being caught up. So Second Kings chapter 2. 2 Kings chapter 2, we're going to go there. Then tomorrow we'll get into probably them being where they're actually Moses and Elijah appear. I'll try to open it up today. And it came to pass, Elijah chapter 2. 2 Kings chapter, there's no book of Elijah. 2 Kings chapter 2. And it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Bethel. Good morning, Steve. Lord hath sent me to Bethel. And Elisha said unto him, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel. And the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? So the prophet said, don't you know the Lord's going to take away Elijah? The prophets knew this. And he said, Elijah, I think it's Elijah. And he said, yes, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Jericho. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho. And the sons of the prophets that were there at Jericho came to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? And he answered, so it was Elisha the last time. And he answered, and yea, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said unto him, tarry, I pray thee here, for the Lord hath sent me to Jordan. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And they two went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off, and they two stood by Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters that they were divided hither and thither. So the two went over on dry ground. Can you imagine that? He just takes his mantle like Linus does with the snowballs, throwing snowballs and stuff, and Charlie Brown Christmas. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, he takes his mantle, that thing, and wraps it in whack that water and splits the Jordan River. It's pretty wild. And it came to pass, verse 9, when they were going over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. And he said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be so. And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And by the way, people say that Elijah went up in a chariot of fire. He didn't. The scripture said at the beginning what was going to happen to him. And at verse 11, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. So that's pretty wild. A tornado took him up. That was probably God himself, because if you compare it, it said God came down and spoke to Job from the whirlwind. It's pretty wild. So that whirlwind came down and grabbed Elijah and shot him straight up to heaven bodily. And there's only 2 times in the Bible and the Old Testament that we know that there was a bodily resurrection. The other time was Enoch. That's why there's a teaching out there that the 2 witnesses will be Elijah and Enoch. Both were prophets. But the thing is this, Enoch does not represent Israel. Moses represents Israel because he was a deliverer for Israel. He was the one that took the Jews out of Egypt, out of the world, into the promised land. So it's got to be Moses and Elijah that go up into the streets of Jerusalem and preach. They show up and they preach for 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. It cannot be Enoch. Enoch was not a Jew. The tribulation is called the time of Jacob's trouble. That's where God is pouring out his wrath here on earth to draw the nation of Israel as a nation back unto him. So for 3.5 years, you're going to have these 2 people show up and preach. Now let's go, just for the sake of things, and look at Elisha. And tomorrow we'll look at the 2 witnesses. All right, so go with me. I think it's Genesis 7, 8. Genesis 8. Let's go there. Go back to Genesis and the first 8 chapters, 9 chapters. And I know it's not chapter 9, but Genesis, let's see here. A lot of stuff in Genesis. So it'd be Genesis 5. Genesis 5. That's what I thought. Start in verse 21. And Genesis 5:21. And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 360 and 5 years. And Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. So Enoch was walking with God, and all of a sudden God said, you know what, let's go up to heaven. So God took him up to heaven. Now go to something interesting about Methuselah, his son. I did a number math thing, years, to figure out when Methuselah died. And before I knew when he died, for sure, I came up with he would have died the year of the flood. So an interesting thing about his name, yes, Methuselah lived to the flood. He died the year of the flood. Methuselah means when he is dead, it shall be sent. That's what Methuselah means. That means when he is dead, the flood will be sent. So the oldest man alive that ever lived, Methuselah, 969 years, I believe it is. Yep, 969 years. He died the year of the flood. And can you imagine Methuselah's eyes as he watched Noah build the ark? That'd be some crazy things to watch. But he died before it. I thought maybe he died in the flood. That was kind of a wild thing because of the timing. But no, his name means, again, when he is dead, it shall be sent. That's what Methuselah means. And the year he died was the flood. And Enoch, his father, went up to heaven long before that. All right, now we look at this right here. I think that's a good stopping point for Enoch. Enoch does not show up again in the Bible. He's talked about, but he never shows back up. The two that do show back up from the Old Testament at the Mount of Transfiguration were Moses and Elijah. And if what I believe is right, that the first 3.5 years of Christ's earth ministry, or the 3.5 years of Christ's earthly ministry, were the time frame of the first half of these 7 years, according to Daniel, then that would mean Moses and Elijah were there just prior to Christ going up, Christ dying and going up, and they possibly, he'd be, another caveat, before we do that tomorrow, I should remember, they could be the two people that came down and talked to the apostles when Christ went up. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Give a little nugget on that. All right, God bless y'all. I hope you have a great day today. Enjoy it. Talk to you tomorrow, Lord willing, unless the Lord takes us home. God bless.